Warhammer 40k is a massive universe, and it's all teetering on the edge of complete destruction. The taint of chaos has spread across the galaxy, and humanity is being attacked on all sides. However, the human race is still fighting because they didn't hear no bell. They're still more than ready to throw down, and god damn it, they're gonna blast their enemies to smithereens, or they're gonna die trying. Since there was a lot of good feedback on my last lore video, I decided that I would occasionally dabble in it. And as I'm building an Imperial Guard army, it would only be fitting to give you all a bit of background and information about the armies of humanity in the Warhammer 40k universe. So today we're going to be going into what the Imperial Guard are, their organization, and what it's like to collect them as an army. So now that you know the details, let's get stuck into it. I think that, like any good Warhammer lore video, it's always best to start off with a quote, and goddamn, this is a banger. Enemies of the Imperium, hear me. You have come here to die. The immortal Emperor is with us, and we are invincible. His soldiers will strike you down. His war machines will crush you under their treads. His mighty guns will bring the very sky crashing down on you. You cannot win. The Emperor has given us his greatest weapon to wield, so make yourselves ready. We are the 1st Cronus Regiment, and today is our victory day. I think that quote very nicely summarizes what it's like to be in the Imperial Guard. Because when you think about Warhammer 40k, your brain will probably have an image of a space marine fighting against a horrifying enemy. And while this does happen, it isn't as common as you think. Space marines, they are powerful, yes, but they are rare. The reality is that space marines don't actually fight most of the Imperium's battles. What we see is the propaganda. In all honesty, that's one of the main reasons why I love the Astra Militarum so much, because they're the unsung heroes of the Imperium. They are the ones who keep the entire empire of mankind from falling apart. Many times over, we have seen quotes and descriptions that paint the Emperor as having inexhaustible armies, but this isn't talking about Space Marines and Custodes. They are finite. There are only ever going to be so many of them, and most of the time, it's the ordinary men and women of the Imperium. Yes, you did hear that right. Women are also common in the Imperial Guard because they don't discriminate. Can you pull a trigger? Yes? Great. Welcome to the Imperial Guard. Congratulations, son. Congratulations, daughter. Off you go. Fight and now charge at the Tyrannid Carnifex with your lasgun. Their soldiers are just Imperial citizens. There's no augmentations. There's no special Captain America serum. Nothing is really done to change them. It's just normal people fighting for their lives on the front line against all the nasty crap the galaxy is throwing their way. They are thrown into war zones in immense numbers, basically just a straight up meat grinder. Lone soldiers will fall in the Emperor's service, but together they forge an iron sense of duty, which enables armies to crush even the most monstrous of foes despite horrendous losses. Yeah, it makes you want to just run away, but that's when you hear the commissar shooting some poor bastard who just tried to run away from the battle. Yeah, the Imperium fights so many horrific enemies that they have a political officer who has the job of keeping the morale and fighting spirit of the entire regiment up by any means necessary. They even have the authority to shoot an officer if they deem them to be a coward. So, you're refusing to charge at the enemy? Ah, traitor! Bang, you're dead. So, that's kind of the grim darkness of what it's like to be in the Imperial Guard in Warhammer 40k. The value of human life is insignificant. There are so many humans in the universe that it doesn't matter if 1 million guardsmen died in a single battle. Did we win? Great! Reinforcements are here. Have another 2 million soldiers and keep going, son. The Emperor protects. Because they don't always take the center stage, a lot of new fans seem to think that they are more of a support army for Space Marines. No way. In Warhammer 40k, we are a horde army. We overwhelm enemies from our numbers and firepower. The Tau and Necrons, they have some of the most high-tech militaries in the setting, with some crazy weapons, but mankind will just keep throwing millions of soldiers in their way. The idea is that they are just waiting until that one particular soldier can move up and take the ground they need. Then it just becomes rinse and repeat. I bet some of you are thinking, what kind of training do the Imperial Guard actually have? And are they any good? Because a lot of people hear that they're useless. Well, it usually depends on where the soldiers are from. You see, the way the Imperium works is that planets are mostly left alone to manage their own defenses, but they have to contribute something on a regular basis to stay in the Imperium of Man. This can be in the form of resources, equipment, or soldiers for mankind to use. Because there are so many different planets with different situations, the soldiers of the Imperial Guard reflect this. It's made up of men and women from thousands of worlds all over the galaxy. So understandably, they're not standardized. There isn't a set way of how to train up an Imperial Guardsman, so you have a wide variety for each regiment's training, morale, equipment, and distribution. Some planets have become widely famous for the quality of their soldiers, such as the Rambo bodybuilders that are the Catachan jungle fighters, who hail from the planet of Australia. Yeah, Catachan is a funny one, because it's basically Space Australia dialed up to 11, because even the plants eat people on a regular basis, so the most harsh Imperial war zone might just seem a little bit more tame compared to a normal day on Catachan, which is just insane. In other cases, some regiments are chosen for a particular battlefield because they excel at that exact kind of combat. The Death Corps of Krieg, for example, are a fan favorite. These soldiers constantly wear gas masks, and they will happily throw themselves into the most gruesome and high-casualty battlefields. Why? Because they believe that sacrificing their lives, no matter how meaningless, is the best way for them to make up for rebelling against the Imperium years ago. The death toll for the Imperial Guard is just straight up depressing. However, in some cases, this has led to some soldiers, some exceedingly rare individuals that can take all of this crap and dish it back to the worst enemies of mankind. Lord Castellan Creed, Commissar Yarrick, Iron Hand Strachan, or even Lord Solar Leontis. These are just some of the experienced commanders that lead Imperial Guard armies. They have survived hundreds of battles in a galaxy where most of a regiment can die in mere minutes. This is an unbelievable feat to survive in a profession where so many die. The knowledge and experience that they develop at that point is in a single word: deadly. They can be unpredictable or have the most complex strategies, but all of them are masters of warfare, and in the Imperial Guard, that means making full use of all of the firepower at their fingertips. The Space Marines of the Imperium are specialized, like a scalpel, for precise and well-coordinated strikes. But the Imperial Guard are more like... well, they're not just a hammer. It's more like a thunder hammer. There's a bit more oomph behind the swing. It doesn't matter if a human is not as fast as an Eldar or as strong as an Orc, because the Imperial Guard will find success on a battlefield through two ways: faith or firepower. And goddamn, we have a hell of a lot of both of them. Ah, I got another quote for you. Your foe is well equipped, well-trained, battle-hardened. He believes his gods are on his side. Let him believe what he will. We have the tanks on ours. The Imperial Guard make copious use of heavy armored support, and in the form of an ungodly amount of tanks and artillery. If it wasn't clear already, humanity is a war machine, and the scale that they operate on is mind-boggling. Thousands of tanks will support guardsmen as they charge the battlefield with artillery booming overhead. The cannons, they just don't stop firing. All of the Forge Worlds and Manufactorums that support mankind are used to their fullest. At the end of the day, for the Imperial Guard, it's a numbers game. I mean, let's be honest, the technology of humanity is not the greatest thing in the galaxy right now, and their weapons might be borderline useless against some of the enemies, but it's not about how much damage they're doing. It's all about overwhelming amounts of firepower. And that's exactly where the Imperial Guard just come in king. We have a tank that has 11 barrels. 11. If you like tanks and artillery and all of that stuff, the Baneblade is a absolute dream. The various planets and the needs of the Imperial Guard have resulted in it being the most diverse military organization in the galaxy. They have sanctioned psychers that can be used in battle, mutated humans like Ogrins for their strength and Ratlings for their uncanny sniping ability. It's almost like you have a Swiss Army knife. And then, we still have the elite troops like the Tempestus Scions, which are kind of just the absolute best of the best for Imperial Guard as far as training, equipment, the whole shebang. And they kind of deserve their own video, but there's essentially a huge variety of units that you can call on. And in the tabletop, that is available to you to have all of these variations, but in a 40k lore scenario, a commander doesn't always have access to every single elite unit or every different regiment that's out there. So a lot of the time, these commanders have to make some very hard decisions to just improvise and use the best that they can out of a situation, to just kind of make a decision, roll with it, and try to get the best result. That's the reality of defending such a large empire. It can take a long time for resources to reach a planet. Messages can get lost in the warp, or time dilation can be a bitch. Things will always be unpredictable, and if they wait to hear back from a superior commander, the reinforcements they're asking for, they might arrive to find a graveyard of bodies. Does this tie one hand behind the back of the Imperial Guard? Yes, it essentially does, but it's the only way to practically keep the Imperium safe. That's why I have so much respect for the Imperial Guard. They fight like mad dogs with their backs to the wall. I just love the idea of a normal guy in all of the horrible madness of Warhammer 40k just running in and doing the best he can. So, what's it like to collect them on the tabletop? Well, to start, it's bloody expensive. It's almost exactly as I described. They have a big focus on tanks and artillery, and they have a ton of different models. Not as many as Space Marines, but yeah, it's still a pretty damn good range. Their base troops are very weak. They're not very accurate, and they don't do much damage, but they have a ton of them. So, depending on how you organize your army, you're quite likely to be painting for a fair amount of time while you build up an army. So that's something to consider. Your troops are also very weak, but most people either use them as a meat shield while the artillery and their vehicles do a lot of damage. Other people run heavy infantry and just have ridiculous numbers of guardsmen just running at people and just hundreds of las guns going off. And it's a legitimate strategy. Some people actually do it, and they have painted hundreds of Imperial Guard models. So there's a lot to it, and at the same time, your models will not take up much of the points that you can spend. So because of that, if you're building up a full-size army, it can end up costing you a bit of money to buy all of these models and just accumulate a full 2,000 point army. But I think that it's still something that's worthwhile if you're interested and you think the whole aesthetic and everything about them is cool, because they have so many choices that you can have a lot of fun with. Some of the more recent models can get some great detail in there. I recently painted Lord Solar Leontus, and I had a fantastic time on the weekend getting that sorted. Depending on the direction that you want to take your army in, you can also have some crazy artillery pieces. There's also the Death Strike missile launcher, which I'm pretty sure the missile is about as big as the bloody truck carrying it, which is fantastic. And apparently in older versions of the game, you could actually, it had unlimited range. So on the tabletop, you could put it in the corner and you could actually cross-map people with it, or if you had a very relaxed sort of games session, then you could also launch it onto someone else's battlefield and fuck them up as well, which is just amazing. And that's the wonderful fun that you can have in Warhammer 40k. So that is pretty much most of what I wanted to cover today. It was just a general overview of the Astra Militarum, what they're like, what they're all about, and I guess a bit of a mixture of lore and information, alongside one or two shitty jokes. But that is just about it for today. So, once again, I hope you all liked the video, and I will see you all on the next one. I've been Kiv, and I'm out.